Bonjour et bienvenue au podcast de Learn French with Alexa. Now, in today's podcast, I will read a short passage in French based on a fun fact about me, Alexa Polidoro. Again, if you don't know who I am, it really doesn't matter. But I am a YouTuber, and the name of the channel is Learn French with Alexa. Anyway, in today's text, we're going to go through an A2/B1 level, okay, which means that it is for late beginners and intermediate level. So we are going to focus on a grammar point. This one is all about the imparfait, and I'm going to teach you a little bit about the imparfait while reading the text, okay? Now, I'm going to read it once. Okay, and then I will ask you a question. Then I will read it a second time and we will answer the question together. Okay, listen really carefully. This podcast is titled Mon sport. Sport being sport. Okay, what sport do you think I did extensively when I was a teenager? Now, listen really carefully. Écoutez attentivement. Quand j'étais plus jeune, je faisais beaucoup de natation. En plus d'enseigner la natation aux enfants pendant mon adolescence, j'ai aussi été maître-nageuse sauveteuse dans des colonies de vacances plusieurs étés d'affilée, ce qui m'a permis de voyager partout en France. Je surveillais les enfants, soit dans des piscines, soit à la mer. Même si c'était une activité avec d'énormes responsabilités, j'ai aimé travailler avec les enfants. Okay, so we've read the text once, what I have. How much of it did you understand? Did you manage to get the job that I used to do as a teenager? Okay, now here's my first question. Qu'est-ce que je faisais comme travail quand j'étais plus jeune? So that's exactly the question I'm asking you, the one I've just said. What work did I do as a younger person? Qu'est-ce que? Qu'est-ce que means what is it that I did? Okay, qu'est-ce que? You always start a question with est-ce que or qu'est-ce que. Now the que comes from what, okay? Qu'est-ce que je faisais? Now faisais is the imperfect of faire. I used to do, okay? What did I used to do comme travail as work quand j'étais plus jeune, when I was younger. So we are going to listen to the text the second time now. Now focus on what it is that I did when I was young, okay? And this is based on a true story, a true fact, you know. So listen to it very carefully. Try to make a full sentence, ideally in French, if not in English. That's okay, because that means you're managing to translate the text from French to English. Listen to the text the second time. Écoutez attentivement. Quand j'étais plus jeune, je faisais beaucoup de natation. En plus d'enseigner la natation aux enfants pendant mon adolescence, j'ai aussi été maître-nageuse sauveteuse dans des colonies de vacances plusieurs étés d'affilée, ce qui m'a permis de voyager partout en France. Je surveillais les enfants, soit dans des piscines, soit à la mer. Même si c'était une activité avec d'énormes responsabilités, j'ai aimé travailler avec les enfants. Now, by the way, I don't know if you can hear the seagulls. Just here in London, by the riverside, the Thames side, the seagulls are really loud. They have lots to say, especially when you come out just to look at the Thames and then they attack you, which happens to me many times. I don't know what, must be the color of my shirt, whatever it is. They seem to like me or not, for that matter. Anyway, joke apart, what job did I do as a younger person? Quel travail je faisais quand j'étais plus jeune? Now, j'étais plus jeune when I was younger. Okay, here you've got a comparative plus jeune que younger than. Okay, plus jeune means younger. So you could start the sentence by quand Alexa était plus jeune, par exemple, ou quand elle était plus jeune, when she was younger. Okay, she used to do what? What job? Now, I did a sport. Did you understand natation? Natation means swimming. Swimming, okay? Now, what's very interesting about that is that when you look at the word and the verb, they are very different. The actual swimming, the sport, is la natation. But the verb is nager, to swim, okay? Je nage, okay? And weirdly, swimming pool is another word completely. It's la piscine. So if you wanted to see I swim in the swimming pool, it would be je nage dans la piscine, okay? So natation was my sport. So what was the job I did as a teenager? Up until the age of 19, I think I did that. Yes, I was maître-nageuse, sauveteuse. Now, sauveteuse comes from sauver, to save. Okay, maître is master, nageuse, swimmer. Okay, so that's another thing as well. The swimmer is nageur. So let's recap. Nager, to swim. Nageur, the swimmer, ou nageuse, if you're a girl. Okay, then la natation, the swimming, et swimming pool is la piscine. Okay, so quand j'étais plus jeune, mon travail, c'était maître-nageuse sauveteuse. So this is your translation is lifeguard, in effect. So I was a lifeguard, okay? Did you manage to get where I was a lifeguard? Dans les colonies de vacances. Do you know what colony de vacances that is? The colony de vacances is your equivalent to summer camps, okay? So I was a lifeguard in summer camps, whether it was by the sea or by in swimming pools. Now, I could ask you another question. Qu'est-ce que ça m'a permis de faire? What did that allow me to do? Qu'est-ce que ça m'a permis de faire? Now, remember, this text is of B1 level. So by that point, you know how to conjugate in the imparfait. You know how to conjugate in the passé composé. Now, a permis comes from permettre, to allow. Okay, but in this case, it is in its passé composé form. So, qu'est-ce que ça m'a permis de faire? Ma, M apostrophe. What did this allow me to do? And that's where the me comes from. Me. Okay, faire, to do. So that could be an answer. What did this allow me to do? I'm going to read the text one last time and then translate it. Okay, so listen to it very carefully. Here's the question. So I was a maître-nageuse sauveteuse, a lifeguard, but what did this allow me to do? Quand j'étais plus jeune, je faisais beaucoup de natation. En plus d'enseigner la natation aux enfants pendant mon adolescence, j'ai aussi été maître-nageuse sauveteuse dans des colonies de vacances, plusieurs étés d'affilée, ce qui m'a permis de voyager partout en France. Je surveillais les enfants, soit dans des piscines, soit à la mer, même si c'était une activité avec d'énormes responsabilités. J'ai aimé travailler avec les enfants. So, what did this allow me to do? The fact that I was a lifeguard in camps, summer camps, wherever it was. Ce qui m'a permis de voyager. Did you get that? Voyager means to travel, like a voyage, okay? So this allowed me to travel partout en France, everywhere in France, okay? So having a lifeguard certificate meant that I could actually hop on any summer camps because I had that skill that a lot of people did not have, okay? My job was quite simple, but very scary in some ways because you were looking after children that were not yours, so the responsibility was huge, especially when you're 18, 19 or 20 years old. I had to make sure that the children were safe in the swimming pool, but also the sea. I think for me, the worst part is the sea, looking after children while they are scattering in the sea. And then fearing that you may lose one of them on the way. Actually, looking back, I'm not sure I could do this job again because I would not want the responsibility again. Anyway, so it allowed me to travel as a lifeguard throughout France. Now, let's have a look at the text again. Now, here we're focusing on the imparfait. And we cover the imparfait at Learn French with Alexa, the full certified course in lesson 23. If you're interested, this is me plugging in my course here. Anyway, quand j'étais plus jeune, when I was younger. And again, j'étais comes from être. And AIS is the ending you will see throughout the text because it's je. So the ending of the imperfect for je, the personal pronoun is, the subject pronoun is AIS. Okay, so quand j'étais plus jeune, je faisais beaucoup de natation. I used to do a lot of swimming. Okay, so that's very clear. I was, okay. It can be translated as I used to be, but in that case, when you say quand j'étais plus jeune, when I was younger, here use the imperfect and translate it as when I was. Okay? Je faisais beaucoup de natation. En plus d'enseigner la natation aux enfants, so as well as teaching swimming as well as teaching swimming to younger children during my teenage years, I was also a maître-nageuse, sauveteuse. By the way, if you have answered that the work I used to do was teaching, I'm happy with that too. I forgot to mention that that was at the beginning of the text. Yes, I taught swimming to children in a swimming pool next to my house. I did swimming from the age of 5. And for the little anecdote, I was very comfortable in water, but my brother wasn't. And do you know how he started swimming? Now, bear in mind that this is the 1970s, all right? So, and he was about 7 because he was 2 years older than me, or he is still. The swimming instructor took his arm and his leg because he was refusing to go in the water, my brother. And he threw him inside the swimming pool. That was it. That was his first experience of swimming. That was my brother's first day at swimming. He was literally thrown in the water against his will. Can you imagine if that happened nowadays? Yeah, there would be a court, a lawsuit or something like that here, because that will be considered as violence and abuse, I think. But anyway, saying that, he's a very good swimmer, my brother now. So, just saying. Anyway, so I used to teach, enseigner means to teach la natation, swimming to children, aux enfants. And of course, it's aux because enfant is plural here, okay? Instead of saying à la, okay, à la, which is feminine, you never say à le or à les, so you would contract that into au. Pendant mon adolescence, during my teenage years, from 17, 18, 19, I did swimming a little bit in my 20s as well. So, j'ai aussi été maître-nageuse sauveteuse, okay? I also was, okay? I also have been. Can you see here the passé composé? J'ai été. Maître-nageuse sauveteuse, okay, lifeguard, dans les colonies de vacances, in summer camps. Plusieurs étés d'affilée. So here is it's slightly, it is of B1 level. Now, plusieurs étés d'affilée means several summers in a row. So d'affilée, okay. Plusieurs hivers d'affilée, you could say, plusieurs semaines d'affilée. So you could start with several, plusieurs something, plusieurs heures d'affilée. Okay, that's hours in a row. Okay, so learn this expression because it's quite good, I think, to know. Now, ce qui m'a permis, which allowed me. Now, ce que et ce qui is actually a really good phrasal form to know. Ce que, which, ce qui, which, and then verb. So, ce qui m'a permis, ce qui a permis à moi de voyager, which allowed me to travel in France. What did I do? Je surveillais. I was looking after. Okay, I looked after. Je surveillais. Here is another imparfait. AIS at the end because je is used as a subject pronoun. So, je surveillais. I used to look after les enfants, the children. Okay. Now listen to soit dans des piscines, soit à la mer. Now you heard that the first time. What do you think that means? Soit. Now when you put soit and then soit again, it means either or. Okay, either in pools or at the seaside, okay? Either or, okay? Soit. You can use that in any context, not necessarily in that context, okay? Même si c'était une activité avec d'énormes responsabilités, so even though it was an activity with huge amount of responsibility, c'était, again, imparfait. Une activité with huge responsibilities, okay? Avec d'énormes responsabilités. J'ai aimé, here, passé composé, travailler, infinitive of to work, avec les enfants. I loved working with children. And as a matter of fact, if you don't know, that's how I started my career as a French teacher. I had a company which taught French at primary schools and nurseries. Here in the UK, this is from 3 years old to 11 years old. So that was my specialty, and that was what I was known for at the time. If you're enjoying learning French with me and would like to go even further, my certified complete French course brings everything together in one place. You'll have lessons, quizzes, and support guides to help you reach your goals, and it's all taught by me. Use code ALEXAPOD for 15% off. Now, you may wonder, I don't know, but I'm going to tell you anyway, what was the worst thing that happened while I was a lifeguard. Thankfully, nobody got hurt badly. Nobody drowned. Oh my gosh, it would have been terrible. And I think I was so vigilant because I was in charge of people's children here, and I did not want anybody to be, actually looking back, it was quite a responsibility. Yeah. Like I said earlier on, I will never do this job again. Too much responsibility. Anyway, I remember I was a lifeguard in a lake. And this boy, and that was a teen, like 13 or 14 years old, dived in. He dived in. He literally dived in. But he thought it was deeper than it was really. So he came out quite jolly. And he said, okay, it's not too bad. Did you see how I dived, And to dive is plonger in French, plonger. Except that when he came out of the water, his head was full of blood. And he basically had gone a little bit too close to the stones in the bottom of the lake and did not realize, because he was drenched in water, that he had cut open his forehead. Anyway, so at this point, we looked at him in complete shock, and he did not, and that's what was funny in some ways, he didn't realize that he was injured until we pointed it out. At this point, there was panic. So don't worry, he's fine. Well, that was about 30 years ago. He's a full-grown man now. I don't know whether he remembers that, but we took him to the emergency and he was looked after. Anyway, that was the worst thing that happened to me during my time as a maître-nageuse sauveteuse. Okay, so that's it for this little episode on the job I used to do as a teen. Hopefully you've learned a lot, and remember that we cover all these grammatical points in my course, which is followed by thousands and thousands of people. If you want to check the website out, it's learnfrenchwithalexa.com. The YouTube channel has 2.4 million subscribers. It's Learn French with Alexa, and we are on social media everywhere as well. Now, please, if you like this kind of exercises, let me know and leave me a comment or like the podcast and share it, as with as many people as you can. That's it for me. Au revoir, à bientôt, bisous bisous.